Well, it's very much a pleasure to be here. I was able to be in town because yesterday I was speaking to a men's group. About 800 men came over to one of the parishes, and I was able to address some of the issues that we have, in particular as men. Of course, the same issues affect women, but we were addressing some of the concerns of men. And in some ways, that a few points would apply to the Knights of St. George and other groups. I can certainly remember when growing up, especially actually after I'd finished growing up and was already in college and afterwards, that there were a lot of voices in our country who strongly objected to organizations like the Troops of St. George and others who were trying to give young men discipline and some direction, and especially to get young men to understand how their faith fits into all the other aspects of their lives. And some of the same points were made about the organizations for girls, but less so. They went in another direction. And what is it that they don't like? Like, what would they really be upset with in having a color guard and young men and boys in a uniform and marching? And they'll say, well, this is sort of like the army. You're just trying to get them to be military people or paramilitary and do all this stuff. That's not the issue. There's something more at the core of the problem. That is a struggle in our culture. Our culture really is in this turmoil as to how it's going to shape. And the real tension that folks in the culture would have is the forces in, say, the media, some of the politics, and elsewhere, want us all to be divided into individual units. You have your own personal values that you follow, and you do what you want as your individual self. With that, when they want that, there's something else that they want. And that is that there is no such thing as truth. Does not exist in their mentality. And everybody has their own personal truth. You have your truth, you have yours, you have yours. Everybody has their own little truth. And if we only learn to let every individual just be their own individual self, and let everybody have their own truth, everything will be just a hunky-dory, happy place. Wrong answer. That won't work. How many of you were born by yourself? Raise your hand. Nobody. All of us want to be close to our mothers. And it's essential. You are not an individual all by yourself. That doesn't exist. You may be isolated sometimes, but you didn't get born by yourself, and your kids won't get born by themselves. You know, that's not going to happen. Can't. And here's where something really comes into play. Remember I said that everybody wants their own truth. I have my truth, you have yours. We'll just let everybody be. Here's where the problem shows up. What happens when two vehicles come to a crossroads at the same time, which one goes through the crossroads first? Any of you know enough about driving? What happens if two cars come from one direction and then the other, and you're at a crossroads? Who goes first? They arrive at the exact same time. Which one?
The other person?
The other, why?
Because you don't want to go right before they do.
Why not? What if I feel I should go first? I'm probably more important than that other person. I'm in a bigger hurry. So don't you think I should go first? Well, you have no right to think that. That's your truth. My truth is I go first. And here's going to be the other thing. I'm teasing you. It's but if you don't have truth outside of yourself, then you can't figure that out. Unless one of you is driving a Prius and the other one a Humvee. Then it's simple to decide. The Humvee goes first or else. In other words, the biggest, the baddest, and the most powerful goes through. Because you can't decide. Because you can't agree on anything else. Now, in the world as we have it today, if you come there and there's a stoplight, the one who has the red light must stop, and the one with the green light gets to go. Unless you live in Cairo, then they don't pay attention. In Cairo, the stoplights are a Christmas decoration. The problem is they're all Muslims, so it doesn't matter. But in this country, we pay attention to that because there's a law. If you have a red light, you stop. You have a green light, you get to go. And if you go through the red light and you hit somebody, then it's your fault. That happened to me right over here close to church. I was coming back to church with Father Assad, and a guy went right through the red light, and we were stopped, but he still went through and he hit us. Another man was also drunk. So that's one of the reasons he was in his own little world. But that's not helpful, is it? Because in fact, he had gotten himself so that he was blocked in by us. He couldn't get out of his vehicle until the police came. And they helped him make an exit, but not to where he really wanted to go. By his truth, he should have gone home. By the police truth, he went to jail and lost his license. I don't think he actually had one. So this is the way the real world works now. But if everybody is their own little individual and everybody has their own truth, you're going to have chaos. That world doesn't work. And one of the things that you're doing in an orderly way is the opposite of what the culture wants you to learn. That we show love of the flag. It's not just about the different colors of cloth. It's about a symbol of the country and our commitment to the nation. And we're committed to the state of Texas as a whole state and committed to the whole church. In the forces in our culture that want you to do your own thing and be your own individual don't want you to listen to the state, the federal government, and certainly not the church. They want all of us isolated. Now, there's a principle in war called divide and conquer. Any of you ever hear that phrase? What does it mean?
I don't know. I just heard it.
Well, that's a start. That's a start. You heard it. What do you think it means?
It means if you separate your enemy, they can't operate.
Right. That if you separate them into individual groups, you can take them off one at a time. If your enemy is a big army that's working together, then you have to fight the whole army. But if they're all separated off, then you can take them out one at a time and get them under your control. Right? And this is something that we're doing the opposite of. You know, how many of you have ever gone camping and built a fire? Okay. Now, when you build a fire, do you take the sticks and throw them in all different directions and try to get a fire started?
Sometimes they do.
And how does that work out for you? You need to take the sticks and put them together. If you don't have the sticks, and is it not also, by the way, not only is it important to have the sticks together, but do you not also have to have the smaller sticks first to start the larger ones for a fire? Because none of them are unimportant. The big ones and the little ones are all important. You get your cooking done on a big one, but you won't get the big ones started without the little ones. That's life. That's life. And all of them work together. This is something that too many folks in our culture want us to isolate. And we're here to do something of the opposite. Now, that's one key thing. And it's very important to have that. So that's why you drill, you practice, you do things together. And it's just helping to get a sense of working together as a group. But then there's something else. And this would be the second point I'd make, and then want to open up for some of your own. Well, maybe I'll make a third point, then open it for questions. Second point is, a lot of folks also objected to various organizations for young men and boys and young girls. It's because they were including the faith of the people. That and not only the Catholic faith, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Mormons, all these different groups would be able to express their faith, but their faith was part of what we did. I belonged to such a group, and we integrated our faith. It was part of what we were and did. And here's one of the key things about maturity versus immaturity. I'll start with immaturity. In immaturity, you have all sorts of things in your life. How many of you have hobbies? Okay, yeah, and that's fun. How many of you are still in school? And you also have work that you do around your family's house, right? And if you have any chores around the house? Good, yeah. And you also have your friends. And you also have sports. These are all different parts of life, right? Now, immaturity is when you have each part of your life totally separated from the others. Think about how important it is that your family also knows your friends. You're having your friends know your family. You integrate friendship and family. And you have all these different tasks, school. A lot of times your friends also go to school with you, right? And sometimes you learn together, doing your homework. You pull that together. All these different parts of life. If you are immature, you separate them. Immature people don't want their friends to see their family, and vice versa. Immature people don't see how their jobs and the way they think about politics and what they do at church, all of those are supposed to be separated. That does not make you into a mature person. You have to learn. Maturity is learning to pull all these different things together. So So you see every part of your life as part of the whole, and they keep working on each other. It's just like making a sauce. Any of you ever have spaghetti sauce? Isn't it better the second day? Right? Why is that? Chili. Why is chili better the second day? Because the flavors were individual. You put first salt, and then chili pepper, and all sorts of other spices that you put in there. And then your meat, you get that sauteed. And in Texas, we don't put beans in there, do we? but Yankees do. So, but you get all that stuff. And then those individual things taste better when you put them in the same pot and the flavors mix. How many of you like just to grab a handful of salt and eat salt? No, that's not so good. Or just a handful of pepper and just eat the pepper. That's not so good. But when you put them all together, along with the tomato sauce and everything else, then there's a new flavor in the combination that is better. That's how your life is. It's a combination of the different flavors of life. You integrate, you pull them together, and you let them sit, and it makes even better flavor. Okay? That's a good thing. And that's one of the important aspects of the Troops of St. George, that you're going to pull together your faith, your patriotism, and skills outside, and games, and fun, and learning important safety things. Are they going to learn anything about firearm safety? Yeah. Do you want to be dangerous with firearms? No. No, I don't want you anywhere around me if you're careless with firearms. You want to be safe with all these different things. And that's an important part. Third thing that I was going to say, and then I'll open for questions, is you all are learning an awful lot about nature. And that's very cool. You learn a lot from nature. I love to hunt. I just love it. I love being out in the woods. But I learn a lot from the animals. I don't just sort of get out there in the morning and just open fire. I watch the critters. I want to see who's coming in. What are their interactions? I want to understand the herd that I'm hunting. So I see a variety of issues in terms of who is probably going to die this year. Because deer, you have to learn about deer. That they only live to be about 6, maybe 7. Rarely 8 years old, and they have to learn how to age them. And you figure out, like a lot of people, get all upset. Like I was giving a retreat over in New York City. Now, New York City, they don't know much about nature. This one lady said to me in that wonderful New York accent, "Father, how can you kill those poor deer?" So I said to her, "Well, ma'am, do you go to the grocery store and buy meat?" She said, "Well, yeah." I said, "All right. Difference between you and me is that you get hired killers to do it for you. You're like a mafia don. I'm just a local hitman." And she finally said, "Oh, that makes sense." As opposed to, at least she sort of got it then, as opposed to the guy who sent me an email and said, "Don't hunt, buy your meat in the store because no animals get hurt." I think Bubba needs to get down to a feedlot. Just don't bring some of the politicians with you, because they'll try to take care of it for you. It's important to know where your meat comes from. And they did a survey in London, England, and the people there thought that their breakfast cereal grew on a tree. There's a Cheerios tree and a shredded wheat tree. And on and on, Cornflake Street. They had no idea. That's how divorced they are from nature. That's not good for us to be divorced from nature. We live in a world where there is nature, and it's important for us to have a sense of understanding how nature works, what really goes on. Because there are a lot of lessons that you can learn from nature. But you are in a relationship with nature. You don't tell nature what it's going to do, and it's just conform. It's not silly putty. You interact. Because nature has its own way of getting back at you if you don't do things correctly. That's very, very important. You go for a stroll through quicksand, you're going to be in trouble. And all sorts of other things. So this is something that you have to keep in mind as part of your task. All right? So I want to see if you have any comments or questions. Yes?
You were just talking about how you like to hunt. What's your favorite method?
I like them. I like all the methods I use. I like using a rifle. I prefer using a bow. And I like bow hunting. But you have to make sure you're good. Because what you don't want to do is injure the animal and have it run off with an arrow in it. You want to make sure that when you choose an animal, that it's going to die quickly. If you're good at using a bow, it will. A few seconds, if you get a good shot. But I also, I brag most about a hunt I did where I killed a 300-pound boar and a 250-pound sow. No gun, no bow. Dog and a knife. Stabbed it in the heart with a knife. And it died within 15 seconds because I got right in there. And, because you can't use a gun when pigs come out at night. This is what I mean about knowing nature. Pigs tend to be nocturnal. If you go hunting them, you need dogs to smell where they are. Because I don't have that good a sense of smell. I can smell there might be a pig out there, but I don't know how to follow my nose to where it is. The dog does. And then I don't want to start firing a gun in the middle of the night because I'm not sure what I will hit. Don't want to hit another hunter. Don't want to hit the dogs. So dogs and I confront the pigs, and then I get on there and stab it in the heart and twist till it dies. Now, that's pretty exciting. That's why I brag about it, because I'm an old guy and I still did that. What do you mean you're nodding your head? Yes, about being an old guy. But, the other thing, too, is I started off with a rifle. I learned, with that, and then went to bow, and then did hunt pigs with a knife. So you acquire, that's one of the things you do. You learn to acquire the skills and do it well and practice shooting and everything else. Anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
What's your favorite animal to hunt?
My favorite animal to hunt? The one in my sights? Some are. I like them all. For one thing, I'm fascinated by nature. Fascinated by all of it. I think it's really all very cool. And I like the different kinds of hunts. So for instance, I was down in Louisiana and I was hunting alligators down there. And got a big old 10.5 footer and some 8 footers, 7 and 6 footers. And that's exciting in itself. It's a different kind of hunt. And I really enjoyed that. the challenge. And that's one of the other things too. When I was your age, alligators were endangered. We weren't allowed to hunt them. And we thought, that's the last of the dinosaurs. They're going to all die off. But with careful protection, and what they would do is when a female laid eggs, folks from the government would go and collect them and make sure they hatched, because a lot of times the other gators try to eat the eggs of the other gators, So and they fight to protect their eggs and all that. So now we are overpopulated. It works so well. So now we are maintaining the herd. And that's true with other hunting too. We try to maintain the herd, and hunting has been one of the greatest boons to help that. So I like that, but I also, for instance, I hunted an elk this year. First time I ever shot an elk. And that was also very exciting, because instead of being down in the swamps of Louisiana, I was 9,000 feet up in the mountains, hunting there. And so it's a different kind of hunt, because air is thinner, and you got to learn to follow these big critters who move fast and have a really good sense of smell and sight. So, and again, you're interacting. And learning from them. I watched them a lot. And then I saw one bull elk steal 8 cows from another bull's herd. And I just said right then and there, the wages of sin is death. Bam! Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
How long have you been hunting?
I only started hunting in 2005, because I was, so that's my 15th season. I grew up in the inner city. I grew up as someone who was the hunted, in Chicago. I was shot at 3 times, and mugged at knife point once. A couple other little events that happened along the way that were slightly less dangerous. And, we didn't have an opportunity to hunt. And I took to it right away. Now I was blessed, because my mother's friend growing up married a Native American, and he taught me how to shoot. So I had a good eye, and I was a pretty good shot. But I didn't start hunting until I was in my mid-50s. And my first day, I got an 8-point buck, my first morning out, and a black buck antelope that afternoon. So I said, I'm better at this than I am at football. Or any other sport. So that's when I started. But it was, I wished I'd started earlier. And in fact, I've gotten to be good enough at it now, I don't even buy any beef or pork in the store. I only eat the meat that I kill, except for chicken. No, don't have any wild chickens.
You have to come to one of our campgrounds.
Well, part of the Truth of St. George mission is to help each other as men and set an example for our boys to grow in Catholic authentic manhood.
Yeah.
Could you briefly give us a picture of what Catholic authentic manhood looks like?
There are, again, this is something that a lot of forces in our culture dislike to hear, but there are real differences between men and women that are hardwired into us. You see, for instance, one of the big differences that shows up with small children, even in infancy, is that little girls will play and talk as they're playing. They'll get 10, 12 dolls, bears, and other critters, and they'll carry on a conversation for all of them. Little boys make noises. That's what we do when we play. We are trucks, cars, motorcycles, planes, bombs, guns. We make noise. And little girls talk. Nobody tells kids, all right, you're a boy, you have to make noise, and you're a girl, you have to. No, we just do that. That's who we are. And that's a difference that shows up before anybody tells you to do that. So those differences continue on. And by the way, I have a suspicion, because it also shows up in the way men react with their children versus women. Women will hold them and take care of them, and they'll be very protective and talk to them. You know, they're carrying, you know, all sorts of talking exercise with their kids. And dads, I don't know why we do that, because I do it too when I get to meet kids old enough. You take and you toss them in the air and catch them. That's what guys do and drive moms crazy. Am I right? But you see that moms are hardwired to teach us security, and dads teach us risk. That they throw you up and that they will catch you. And you see babies laugh. They love that. They get, and then they catch it, and then they think it's hilarious. They laugh. Boys and girls will enjoy that. And do it again, do it again. You can't stop. They wear out their dads before they want to stop. But that's something of the way we are. And there are lots of other differences that show up in the way that we react towards life. And learning how to bring out those good qualities of manhood, like teaching risk. That is important so that it gets directed. All of us need to have our natural energies directed. If you don't, I'll use an example. Anybody here ever hear the Everglades? Ever hear the Everglades? Okay, down in Florida. And you know what a river is? Yes. Did you know that the Everglades is a river? Did you know that? The Everglades is a flowing river. Flows from Lake Okeechobee out to the ocean. What's the difference between the Everglades and the Mississippi River or other rivers? It does not have any river banks. There are no banks. That's why it looks like a swamp. It's not really a swamp, it's a river. But there are no banks, and it just sort of flows over and just slowly goes down, and it's full of nasty critters. Everglades is a dangerous playground. And now they got foolish people who put boa constrictors. They get them as pets. And being a stupid pet to have, when it gets to be 15, 20 feet and they can't take care of it anymore, oh, I don't want them to die. I'll just put them out in the Everglades. Now there are hundreds of thousands of these foolish things there. So this is a problem. But anyway, there's a lot of dangerous critters. Whereas on the Mississippi River, you have river traffic going up and down, drinking water, and all sorts of things going on in the Mississippi because it has banks that give it direction. This is what you're doing. If you just let male qualities, or in the case of the girls, female qualities, flow with no direction, no banks to give it a limit, then it becomes a swamp. And instead of young ladies, you get catty little girls who are mean. Instead of young men, you get nasty punks who just do their own thing. You don't want to be that character. You need the limits that give you direction and literally channel your various psychological and physical energies. You could run around like a crazy person, or you can get organized into a football team. Which is it going to be? That's the key that you have to have in life, and that's what I see y'all doing. given the channeling and direction. All right? Well, we have to get going because the plane has its own channeling, and I have to get on it if I'm going to go home. So thank you all.
Thank you, Father.